Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. And I mean it when I say I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I'm thrilled to be joined by Stu Crum, a former college football hero who rose above injury-laden stints with the NFL and USFL and personal setbacks by facing life head-on and aiming high. He embraced faith and servant leadership as game plan for ultimate success in business, family, faith, and fun. And he flourished at every turn by developing a simple, dynamic playbook that put his every aspiration within reach. He calls it intentional living. That's what I'm thrilled to chat with Stu Crum about. He has a new book. It's called Aim for the Uprights, the intentional playbook for success in faith, family, and business. Stu Crum, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Very, very excited to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. You have a great book. Again, Aim for the Uprights. What was your intention, Stu, in writing this book?
You know, I actually 2 years ago at this time had no intention of even writing a book. But I sold a company about 18 months ago. And in the negotiations of that company, one of the people on the other side that I was negotiating with said, you know, Stu, after listening to you for 6 months of negotiation, you got an interesting life. You need to write a book. And I thought, well, I didn't think my life that interesting, but I've done a lot of interesting things in my life. So I sat down and I already had 150 pages written because every week for the last 10 years as a CEO, I write an inspirational note to my team. And so I had 150 pages worth of inspirational notes and took those and then crafted something that would more sound like a book and something that can really help some people think through issues in their life.
Oh, wow. Well, this is great. And I know it's a must read for all of our listeners. So let's talk a little bit about intentional living. What does that mean to you, and why should it matter to our small business audience?
Well, you know, and when I started writing this book, I really started writing it as a leadership book, business leadership. But what I found as I started putting all my thoughts together is really life needs to be lived intentionally, not just at business, but also at home with your family and your children, if you have children and a family. And then also, if you have a faith, whatever that faith is, that should be intentional. And so intentional living is really just simply living life with a purpose. Because what I found was, and I'll go back to my very early years as an athlete. When I was 13 years old, I decided I wanted to be a professional football player and I wanted to be a place kicker. And so I set that as my goal. And I started kicking 100 footballs a day in the winter in the basement because I lived in St. Louis. It was cold. And in the summer outside, of course. But as I started getting older, I started realizing, you know what? My whole life should be intentional. What is the purpose of being a father, and how do I want to be a father? And as a husband, I'm getting ready to celebrate my 39th wedding anniversary. And my wife's put up with me for 39 years, but how am I going to have a great marriage? And then even my faith, how does my faith play into my business and my family? And so intentional is simply, what is my purpose? And then how am I going to go about accomplishing having a great family, a great faith, a great business career?
Absolutely. I'm chatting with Stu Crum, who has quite the reputation in college football, and you certainly have been on the national radar as a model student athlete. But you've also been in some key positions for Texaco, Shell Oil, Jiffy Lube, and Bridgestone, and you've had some deals with the likes of activist investor Carl Icahn and other heavy hitters. And that's why this conversation, I think, as we talk about intentional living, is so important. And I just appreciate, again, so much of how you approach all of this. And Stu, you have drawn a parallel between sports and business. Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you explain it for our listeners and how your early sporting career has shaped you into the professional that you are today?
Yeah, I think there's probably two particular ways they've done it. Number one, I think anybody that's involved in sports, you learn to compete. And you learn to win and lose, right? We don't win everything we do. We wish we did. But so I learned to compete very early on, and that created kind of the X factor in me, always wanting to be the very best that I did. And so that is the element of it in business. And I had some really good coaches in my life. I had some really, really good coaches. And so those coaches helped me to become a better leader. So I learned very early how to compete. Competing is important in winning in business and life, but also those coaches that I had early on in life and actually through college and through professionally helped me have a style And I learned both good and bad, by the way, from those coaches. So not all the coaches I had were necessarily great coaches, but I learned a leadership style, and I call that servant leadership. And that's nothing new. There's a lot of people written about servant leadership. So, two things that sports taught me. One, how to compete. Number two, how to lead. And I took both of those and implemented those in business.
Well, that's great advice and some great parallels that are there. Again, I'm chatting with Stu Crum, who is the author of a new book. It's called Aim for the Uprights, the Intentional Playbook for Success in Faith, Family, and Business. And Stu, just before we cut to break, how has your faith shaped your business life?
Well, I've always believed that you run a business with a moral compass, and there's a right and there's a wrong. There's lying, there's cheating, there's integrity and character, or there's not integrity and character. And I think all of us have seen both the political arena and the business arena of people that have those things that you say, wow, I really admire what they do. And you look at some people and say, well, I don't admire. Well, I tell you, I will not win at any cost, because I won't win to compromise my faith. I won't win to compromise my moral character. And so it is truly something that drives me every day. I want to make sure if I'm going to win the right way. I'm not going to win by cheating. That I'm going to be a person of character, and I'm going to treat people fairly that I work with. And that's both suppliers, teammates, and even competitors that I'm competing against. So I think that faith has helped me get on a right path in doing what I think is the right thing. Now, not everybody necessarily agrees with what I just said, but clearly it's helped me live a life I can be proud of.
Absolutely, Stu. Really appreciate this conversation. We're going to continue our conversation with the one and only Stu Crum in just a moment. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to Get Down to Business. Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I'm chatting with Stu Crum, whose college football heroics put him on the national radar as a model student athlete. And he has quite the professional expertise as well. And in fact, has really brought it all together in Aim for the Uprights, a new book. It's called The Intentional Playbook for Success in Faith, Family, and Business. All three of those areas, Stu, as I know, as we've been talking about, are all really, really important to you. So, Stu, I want to dive deeper into that experience that brought you to Aim for the Uprights. Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you share that with our listeners?
I can, and I'll try to make this as brief as I can. So in 1983, I'm an older guy, I'm 64 now, I was one of the top rated place kickers in the country, and I thought I was going to be drafted. And right before the NFL draft, the New York Giants came out, and the special teams coach came out to watch me kick. He put 10 footballs on the 30-yard line, and for people who know football, that'd be a 40-yard field goal. He put them on each hash mark all the way across. And as I took my steps back, had my holder and my snapper out there, he said, Stu, I don't want you to put the ball through the goalpost. I actually want you to hit the right upright. And I thought, Coach, you got to be kidding. I'm 40 yards out. The upright's 3 inches in diameter. There's no way I can hit it. But by golly, I want to play in the NFL, so I'm gonna try to do that. My snapper hit the ball, or snapped the ball. My holder put it down, took my swing, kicked the ball, and literally I heard a ding. I actually hit the right upright on my first kick. I'm not sure who was more surprised, me, my teammates, or the coach. But we were all surprised. And then I went on to kick 9 more balls. I missed him. But at the end of the session, he said, Stu, do you know why I asked you to do that? I said, Coach, I have no reason. I have absolutely no idea why you asked me to do that. He says, listen, we've noticed that kids, when they're coming from college to pro, they're actually aiming for the goalpost. The problem is, Stu, if you miss a little bit right or left the goalpost, you miss the field goal. But if you aim for something really small in the middle of that goalpost, and you miss a little bit to the right or a little to the left, you still made your 3 points. He says, you've been aiming for good, but I want you to aim for great. And quite frankly, that was actually a literally change in my life, not just from football, but it changed my life. It became a metaphor for my life. Stu, in everything you do, don't just aim for good, aim for great. And I became a better place kicker as a result of that, but I also became a better human being as a result of that, because I realized that in life, you can just go around life being okay or be okay good. But if you live in life and try to be great, just like he was trying to teach me kicking that ball, it's a more fulfilling life. So that is the reason I came up with that story. And it was back literally 41 years ago that I experienced that. But it's resonated with me ever since. I've tried to live my life ever since, aiming for the upright.
Stu, this is great stuff. And I want to make sure our listeners can get in touch with you. And of course, find the book, Aim for the Uprights, the Intentional Playbook for Success in Faith, Family, and Business. It's a must read, just came out this past month. And I want to make sure we make it super duper easy for our listeners. How can we get in touch and how can we learn more about the book?
Well, I mean, you can find the book on Amazon, and it's really easy. Just Stu Crum, Aim for the Uprights. But I also have a website, stewcrum.com, and you can find out a little bit about the book, a little bit about me as well. But just go to Amazon and easy to order. I think it's been out for about 15 days now. And, it's got a lot of great lessons. But, I don't think it's a target audience, but I think if you're between 25 and 45 and early in your career and trying to figure out, how do I have a successful life? I think there's a few nuggets in there that I think can help anybody.
Appreciate it so much, Stu. Can't wait to bring you back on the program. We'll link in our show notes as well. And that's a wrap for us this week here on the show, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. What a fantastic lineup we've had. I've learned something from truly every one of our guests. And I know that you will have a lot of fun, our dear listeners, checking out our past episodes as well, which can all be found on my website, syklein.com, or in your favorite podcast app. Just search for Get Down to Business. And be sure to check out our sponsors, Tom Mirabali, independent agent for all things health insurance and the Affordable Care Act. You could reach him 630-863-3477, 630-863-3477, or his website, healthplanchicago.com. But again, 11 plus years of shows all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship, all available on my website, syklein.com. To success, let's get down to business. We'll see you right here, same place at 6 p.m. on Sunday on AM 560. Have a great week.